Okay, here we go. Hello, Helen Joy Butler.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
So nice to see you again. Helen, we met in B school. I think it was around 2013, and we became instant B school buddies, didn't we?
We
Other
did, and I
sides of the
can't
world.
believe
I
I
know.
love that we
And
can reach across the world.
I love it too. I mean, how else would I have ever met you in Australia when I was living in Madrid at the time? And yeah, we became instant B school buddies. Then you became an expert in my online program that I ran several times. And back then, your expertise was around clutter rescue. That was the name of your business at the time. And you were helping us to clear the physical clutter out of our homes and our lives. And you know, we loved you for that. Now you are moving more into creating sanctuary in our lives, and I'm so keen to hear about more about the transition of moving from clutter to sanctuary. And one of my Project We members, who's also a member of your tribe too, Jan in New Zealand, she's the one who said to each other, why don't you come and speak to the Project We tribe about the concept of creating sanctuary for highly sensitive people? And I said, gosh, I don't know about that subject, and I would love any excuse to talk to Helen. So here we are. That's why we're doing this. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And we probably should thank Jan as well for her
Thank
input.
Jan. Thank you, Jan. Before we dive deep into this subject, I'm wondering if you can tell anyone who's not yet aware of who you are, just a little bit about you and where you are, and then maybe you can transition into how you moved from clutter rescue into creating sanctuary.
Sure. So I live in Brisbane in Australia, and I'm here with my hubby and my son. I call his age, so he's currently Mr. 13 and a half. So in teenage mode, which is another journey to be going through. As you said, I opened Clutter Rescue back in 2008. And so I was doing professional organising, maybe working in people's homes to declutter, organise, the space. And my clients were all women, same kind of situation as me, usually professional husbands, children, juggling all those balls that we tend to juggle. And what I was finding that as I was working with these ladies, I was working with this concept of moving them from busy to balanced. And then over time, that morphed into creating sanctuary. And at the time, I was probably trying to create sanctuary in my own life more. And the reason that came about was because I was starting to feel really disconnected with who I was. And the reason I was feeling disconnected with who I was because I wasn't owning my sensitivities. So it's this really interesting evolution from 2008 to now, because I kind of see, if you were to look at it from the outside or looking in, there's all these different aspects. You were a professional organizer. Before that, I was a teacher. Now you're working with the concept of sanctuary. Oh, and now you're also a trained elemental space clearer. So, I can feel the energy and shift the energy. Oh, and now you're talking about a highly sensitive person. But I see it as this beautiful gem that's being polished to create this thing. I haven't quite worked out what it's called yet. But as I've stepped through those phases, that process, it's helped me get closer to who I am authentically, but also to show up as who I am and how I am. So I still use a lot of those organising and decluttering skills, but I just use them in a slightly different way to when we first met anyway.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I hear you on the personal transformation that we go through. And, we have this kind of public business where people see us and they're following our tools and strategies and all that. But inside, we're changing and we're growing and we're evolving. And it's always like, how do you not throw the baby out with the bathwater, with what you've created and the tribe that you've grown, and have them, want to kind of come with you on the journey. So well done for that. I'm doing that
Oh, thank
myself
you.
now too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that journey, you have to be so true to yourself. But as you've just said, being in the public eye and doing the work that we do, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to leave all those people behind. And that stuff that you did back then is actually really worthwhile. So it's how can we keep using that, but stand where we are and help people along on their journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. You're modeling that so well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the creating sanctuary for highly sensitive people. Before we get moving on that, I think we need to help me to understand what a highly sensitive person is. I mean, I assume since you've taken this on board that you consider yourself a highly sensitive person. And
I do.
help us to understand what that means. And maybe someone watching this will be like, I don't know whether I am or not. So how can they know whether they are or not?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that the first place to start is if you grew up and people said things like to you like, you're too sensitive, get over yourself, stop being a crybaby, you're too thin-skinned, or, you've got to grow a thicker skin, these kind of terms. I think if you grew up from a young age hearing these, whether it's from your parents or your teachers or anyone, you probably are. So that's probably the first port of call. But let's look at actually some of the research. So there's this beautiful lady called Dr. Elaine Aron, and she wrote a book called The Highly Sensitive Person. She's also written another book called The Highly Sensitive Child. And then I think there's actually another one, I'm not sure the title because I don't have it, but I think it's called The Highly Sensitive Person, like in a relationship or in a partnership. Which is quite interesting concept as well. But in her first book, Elaine shares some amazing processes, strategies, statistics. So firstly, 15 to 20% of our society are highly sensitive. So if we break that down, that's 1 in 5 approximately. So I had a family of 6, mum and dad, 4 kids. So, statistically there's going to be 1/2 in that family. 30% of that 15 to 20% are extroverts. Now, I felt that was really important to share with you, Kelly, because I know when we were emailing backwards and forwards, you're going, I'm not sure I'm sensitive, and perhaps I'm more of an extrovert than an introvert. But the difference between an extrovert and a highly sensitive person who's an extrovert is we all tend to know that extroverts get a lot of energy from other people, being around other people, doing stuff with other people, communicating with other people. But a highly sensitive person who is also an extrovert will still need some of that time away, that respite, if you like, away from the busyness. And there's also just as many males as females who are highly sensitive. So we tend to think that it's a female trait. But the difficulty is that we can't kind of just pull out the dictionary and open it up to, H for highly sensitive person and find a definition. So in her book, Dr. Elaine Aron broke the traits of a highly sensitive person down into an analogy of the word does. So D stands for depth of processing. So highly sensitive people process a lot in the head. Think, overthink. O stands for overstimulation. So highly sensitive people are stimulated by stuff in their environment external to themselves, which impacts, internally how they're feeling. This is really where that concept of sanctuary fits in beautifully. E stands for emotional reactivity and empathy. So, we can, cry when we hear good news. We can cry when we hear bad news. And we often have a lot of empathy for what's going on in and around us. And S stands for sensing the subtle. So this is where that intuition, that psychic capacity, that ability to sense things in and around our environment comes in. And this is for me where my elemental space clearing comes in. So DOES is a great way of going, okay, this is, a container, if you like, to say this is what a highly sensitive person fits into. But what I'm trying to do as well is shift the perspective a little bit from people being seen as highly sensitive, because to me that's quite loaded, and having grown up hearing that stuff that I shared with you earlier, it makes you feel a bit less than and a bit average and a bit, I'm not okay. So I'm trying to shift the perspective a little bit, and instead of saying highly sensitive person, I'm using the word highly aware person.
I love that.
Because, it feels more positive.
It really does. It changes everything.
it
It's highly
shifts the
aware.
energy,
It sounds like a really great quality.
doesn't it? And if
Yeah.
I'm aware of you coming to visit me, coming into my home, coming into my space, or I'm going into yours, I can be, okay, well, what's going on here? You know, Kelly's feeling great or not so great. And I can pick up on those, and I can realize that this sensing the subtle is really a massive superpower.
It's a real
And
gift. Yes.
it is, it's a real gift for anybody. It's just trying to shift this perspective of sensitivity being negative and people judging me for it to, hey, I'm aware. And this is actually really positive, because a lot of highly sensitive people feel, you know, sad, upset, heavy, judged, confused, all of those words. And I really think that's unfair, because I've been on that journey and I'm
So
a bit over
once
it.
they reframe, do you find that when people begin to shift from feeling highly sensitive to feeling highly aware, that then they can take what they used to see as their weaknesses and they can begin to see the strengths in it and become more kind of empowered in who they are? Can you hear me? Did we lose each other?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I shared actually something on my Facebook page, and I think it was last week, and it was about different clair senses. So clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, and so on. I said, these are the ones that I am, and these are kind of some extra bonus ones that I've got along for the ride. And some people posted and went, like, brain explosion. They were so pleased to be given permission to own their highly awareness, or high awareness, apologies, and the fact that, oh yeah, the fact that I can pick up on that energy, or I can hear these things, or whatever their clair skill is actually a superpower.
Yeah.
It's just that little tweak, it makes a big difference.
Love that. And if someone knows, for example, that they have a child who's like this, they can be so much more empathetic to the child, even if they are not themselves that way. It can help them to see it isn't like, just pull yourself up, pull yourself together, come on, be more like your brother or be more like your sister, or that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And see, I mentioned already, I've got a Mr. 13 and a half, and he is highly aware. And so, and I've known that for his whole life, but I will admit that I took on what other people told me, like a lot of young mums with their first, you might listen and you think, but in your heart, that that's not the truth, and that you should be doing this other thing as opposed to the thing they're telling you to. But as I step more into being okay with my own awareness, it's allowing me to parent him, which I did well anyway, but now I feel like I'm doing a lot better.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's so important to know. And even if it's your parent or your sibling or your workmate, to be aware that this is a trait, this isn't a fault. It just is who you are.
I love anything we can do to help ourselves to understand that not everybody thinks like we do, not everybody feels like we do in the exact same situation, and it helps us in life, doesn't it, to be able to navigate relationships and everything when we just come from the basic premise that we are all different, not even just in our interests and hobbies and that, but just how we feel, how we process. It's a really good thing for us to be aware of.
It is. And I think if you identify as highly aware, whether you see that in yourself or somebody by standing strongly for yourself or for that other person, that's going to create this ripple effect of benefit for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does take strength to go, you know what, this is what happened in that situation, and I'm actually feeling like my oversensitivity, my emotional reaction just went through the roof, and this is what happened. This is why it happened. It's important to start to have those conversations, because I know that when I started to have those conversations was when it opened me up more fully, but it also gave the other people an understanding of where I was coming from.
I love that. A couple of the Project We members have in the past written some posts saying that they feel really sensitive to the news, and they feel like if they read about something bad in the news, they absorb it. And they don't, they feel it so acutely when there's something bag going on, and they pick up on that. But is that what you're talking about too? Would that be a highly sensitive person?
Absolutely. And in those situations, and this links beautifully with the concept of sanctuary, you need to be really aware of what your triggers are. So the news for me is a massive trigger. And I do recall only a couple of months ago, there was some awful international disaster. And we had the TV on. My husband likes watching the news. I don't. And I just like going, like this is just too much for me. And one way to help sensitive people is to reduce your senses. So whether block your ears or close your eyes, just to help bring you back into your body. And my husband said, we don't have to listen to this. And he got up and he turned it off.
That's so
great. This is what I'm saying about training other people.
Yes.
You have to be aware yourself of what's not good for you.
I have definitely learned about natural disasters and things like that I got really caught up in one many years. I'm not even going to go into what it was, but it played on my brain. I couldn't sleep at night. It really, really tore me up. And I realized that the next time something like that happened, I couldn't watch the news. I couldn't see I could maybe read a news story just to kind of know what was going on, but I couldn't watch the visual news of that. I couldn't see that kind of thing. It just really ate me up.
Yeah, because it was replaying on that loop for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important for anyone who is part of Project We, who's listening to this, to know what those triggers are. I mean, the trigger could be heavy traffic on a rainy day. It could be the loud restaurant or the loud cafe. It couldn't obviously be the news. It can be your children bickering. So what are the strategies that you have that you've learnt to remove yourself or detach yourself from that without feeling like because a lot of people have mother guilt or guilt in general. So drop that to start with, work out what's right for you so you can then build up that awareness as opposed to the sensitivity, and then hopefully start to make changes externally and internally to support you on your journey.
Great. That is wonderful. You've really cleared that up for me. I get it now. And now I want to move into sanctuary. And what does sanctuary mean to you?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a beautiful word. Don't you love it?
Yeah.
Sanctuary to me. So when I talk about sanctuary, I talk about the infinity symbol. So we all know what that is, an 8 on its side. And we've got the external sanctuary and the internal sanctuary. And that point right in the middle is your goal. Now, the idea is to start to shift the external space so that it creates a sanctuary for you. So that might be decluttering, it might be organising, it might be buying flowers at the market on the weekend, it might be creating little vignettes around the house with the lamp and photos or a crystal or a plant or a painting or something you created or something the kids like, whatever, all these little vignettes around the house so that wherever you look, you start to see something beautiful. You might burn a candle so you're starting to smell, the beautiful scent of the candle. So tap into what your senses want and create that in the external, and then allow it to create a shift internally. So that means, what am I doing for myself that no one else knows about? Is it having a guilty pleasure of a bit of chocolate? Is it reading the book in the sun on a Tuesday morning because you couldn't be bothered to do anything else? Is it meditating daily? Is it going for a run? Because a lot of people tend to think around sanctuary, I've got to do these quiet things. And that's what I need as Helen. But a lot of other people love, spending time with friends because that lifts them up. Loves running around the block or training for a marathon or doing that full-on push stuff. Whatever that is, doesn't suit me, but it's perfect for someone if that's
that's so interesting. Yeah, so someone who just wants to pop on headphones and just run, that's their sanctuary.
Yes. And at the end, they've sweated, they've all that adrenaline's out, they've shifted their energy to such an extent that they could probably now say, I'm really peaceful inside. Whereas for me to get to that, that's what meditation does.
So is it what brings you peace? Is that what it's about? Like what brings you kind of serenity and peace and calm?
I think if you were to put one word around sanctuary, it would be safety.
Ooh.
So what do I have external to me and what do I have internal to me that makes me feel safe in who I am and how I show up in the world? We need to look at sanctuary both from a practical kind of physical area. We need to look at it from an emotional area, and we need to look at it from a spiritual place as well. So if you think of safety, what makes me feel safe on a practical or physical level? What do I need to do to make that happen? What do I need to feel safe on an emotional level? And what do I need to do to feel safe on a spiritual level? Bring all of those together and that'll give you that middle of the infinity. It's a juggle, Kelly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I know that for myself, I several years ago now decided to create a sanctuary out of our bedroom because it was just getting a little bit cluttered and there were just some things that we didn't need to have in there. And when I had that huge clear out, so it really is just super minimal and just has on my bedside table, you know, whatever kind of couple books I've got on the go, my crystals, my Tibetan gong, what am I trying to say? My Tibetan bowl, which I like to use in the morning when I meditate, and just created this sanctuary that feels quite. And I redid all the bedding, so the bedding was like 100% Egyptian cotton and soft, you know, things. So it feels sensual. I wanted our bedroom to feel sexy and sensual from the point of view of my marriage, and I also wanted it to feel like a place where I wanted to climb into at night with my book and light a candle, and I wanted it to be a place I would wake up in the morning, no matter how tired I was, and I would actually look forward to my morning meditation and journaling routine. And when I did that, it changed my life.
Yeah. And it wasn't a massive change, right? Like you don't even need to go out necessarily and purchase a lot of stuff. You just made some changes energetically. And even the fact that you've got that Tibetan bowl there and you ring that or gong that or sound, whatever you sing it, whatever you do, doing that every day is shifting the energy in that space. And this links to the elemental space clearing work that I do, because if you can shift any stagnant energy in the space, which a bedroom actually does collect because we spend so much time in there, we sleep in there, you know, hopefully about 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
So you're shifting that every day and you've created a beautiful space, then you've got your sanctuary. It's beautiful.
I love it. It's my happy place. Like when someone asked me in an interview recently, what was your desert island kind of item that you would take, you know, on a desert island? And I'm like, can I just take my bed? Like I know that sounds like, of course, everyone wants to sleep comfortable, but I mean, for me, my bed, if I can only just take my pillow, but I love my bed. Like my family joke, I'm just always in the bed, you know, like it's just whenever I'm feeling a little discombobulated and I just want to feel good again, I just know that if I just get into bed and put my cushions around me and have my crystals and all of that, that suddenly I am just happy again. It's my happy place.
It's my happy place too. And if anyone wants to find me and I'm not in my usual places, that'll be where I am.
Exactly. My family too. They just know, but they can't find me. That's where I'm going to be. And my teenage son, interestingly, he loves baths. He loves having a bath. Whenever we get him something as a gift, everyone just knows to get him bath products and little lights that float in the bath or candles. And we got him a floating little speaker that can actually go in the bath like that, so you can like have his music. And he just is constantly, whenever anyone wants to know where he is, it's like he's in the bath, you know. He loves that space of just being in the bath and just having that space for himself.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I didn't know that you could get all these things. I might have to get onto that.
Never knew it. And so we were kind of like, what can you get him for Christmas, for his birthday? And you kind of Google and you go, wow, you can get him a floating this or a floating that. He loves bath bombs. All he ever wants for Christmas are those bath bombs that you can put in and they fizzle and do all that. His bath is his happy place.
That's amazing. I love it. And see, I love the fact, you know, because normally when we think of baths, we don't traditionally think of boys or men enjoying a bath.
Yeah, I know.
So that's beautiful that he knows already that that's his happy place. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, we're already running, because I know we said we wanted to keep this to about a half an hour. I could talk to you for hours, as always, Helen. Anything else that you want to say about this subject that you think would be important for people to know?
I think out of what we've talked about tonight, for the ladies listening in Project We, I would suggest start with the concept of sanctuary and what that looks and feels like to you. And I've shared a meditation with you, Kelly, as well.
Yes,
so you can,
I did it this morning. Yeah, I did it this morning. It was beautiful. You have such a soothing voice. When you were saying head towards the white light, I was just like, I'm coming, Helen. I was just like, I'm there.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. So start there. Work out what sanctuary means and looks like and feels like to you.
I think, if you don't mind me interrupting, I think I could do that meditation many times and come up with different things. Because as we spoke about just before we went on camera, and the first time around, I got a little bit caught up in when you were saying, think about things from your childhood. I was immediately latching onto my Barbies and my books and my things that I've recently let go of, and my big declutter. I got rid of all these childhood things, and it was a real cathartic experience for me. So when you were having me think about those things, I was right away going, oh, my Barbies and my dolls and this, but then I had a little bit of a conflict. I worked through that. By the end of the meditation, I was completely like, yeah, I'm good. So I want to do it again, and this time realize that what you said is it doesn't have to be physical things from your childhood. It can just be a memory, like my swing. I used to have a swing when I was young, and that was my happy place back then. I would just swing. And so I'm realizing I can do this meditation again, and I can just be going to different places.
How beautiful. Yeah. I love it. And then the thing is like, well, what is it the swing gives me? It's this freedom. It's this sense of movement. It's heights, it's the unknown, because, you're going backwards. You don't know what's behind you, but you're going to go forwards. That's gorgeous. Yeah. So start there. And then in regards to the highly sensitive people, try and just shift your focus to being highly aware. And then maybe just have a look around you. Who's in your life? What are they showing up? What are they doing? How are they seen by, whether it's yourself or people around you? And if you are highly sensitive, I want to invite you to just be kind and gentle with yourself and gently shift your awareness to being highly aware and see it as a massive superpower. But it took me a long time to get there, so I'm not saying it'll happen overnight.
Yeah, I get it. Well, that leads me to, how can people follow you on social media or go onto your website or work with you more?
Yeah, so my website firstly is helenjoybutler.com. There's all sorts of stuff on there. There's a 5 Days to Sanctuary challenge if anyone's interested in doing that, but there's stacks of blog posts and resources and all sorts of things. If anyone is interested in elemental space clearing, I can do that all over the world, so that's fine. My social media accounts are mostly on Facebook and Instagram, so it's just Helen Joy Butler for both of those as well.
Super easy. Okay, great. Well, I'm sure that everyone's going to want to dive into learning more about all of this. It's just a little bit of a flavor, just that we even understand what sanctuary is. And I really love that you've helped me to understand highly sensitive, highly aware, and that it's a superpower. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Helen, I'm going to let you get on with your evening, and I'll get on with my day. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and contributing to Project We.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to see it grow. And I know that whoever is part of Project We has a very special guide and teacher in you, Kelly. So what a blessing for them.
Thank you so much. Okay, you take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.